On September 15, 2018, a young woman boarded a flight from her home in
I barely
Naples,
remember
Italy, to
2018.
Moscow. At the time, nobody took much notice. She was a jewelry designer and a Peruvian socialite, known to travel all the time for work, all around the world. Nothing about it seemed out of the ordinary until she never came back. The woman, known in Naples as Maria Adela Cookveld Rivera, completely vanished. She never returned to move out of her apartment, never said goodbye, stopped replying to her friends' messages, left just a cryptic post on Facebook implying that she was going in for long treatment and might be back in touch one day. But she never did. All traces of her vanished after her flight to Moscow, except she took one important thing with her. In the words of somebody who considered her a close friend, the only thing that she ever felt attached to, her cat. And it's exactly thanks to her cat, Luisa, that we managed to find her, Maria Adela, years later, living in Russia under her true identity. All along, for more than a decade, she had been a Russian spy.
Damn.
Hi, I'm Christo Grozev, an investigative journalist. I focus on exposing Russian spies and intelligence operations. Over the past year, we've told you about
So was he talking from
29155,
somebody else's perspective when he said it as somebody who considers her a close
military
friend?
intelligence.
It seems
The
like kind of
operatives
out now.
involved in these operations are what we would call short-term illegal spies. They leave Russia under fake identities to carry out assassinations, poisonings, or other acts of sabotage, and then return home weeks or sometimes days later. But today I'm going to talk about a different type of spy, one that doesn't operate under the same timeline. Welcome to our new series on my team's investigations into deep cover Russian illegals. Illegal spies live abroad for years, sometimes decades, embedding themselves in foreign societies, learning the language and the cultural idiosyncrasies, and working menial or sometimes fancy jobs. They live under entirely fake identities. Their pasts are 100% fabricated, including their nationality, family history, educational and career background. All of it is thoughtfully crafted by Russian intelligence to help the illegal infiltrate the right groups in the West. And
You imagine
maintain
having a
their
best friend
cover
for years, you
identity
find out
for
he's a
years
Russian
or
spy,
even
what you doing?
decades after that. If this sounds a lot like the setup of the TV show The Americans, famously featuring a family of Russian spies embedding themselves in American suburbia in the late 80s, you'd be very right. That's exactly what it is, and it's a real thing. Is the Soviet and now the Russian illegal spy program. Illegal spies differ from traditional spies in a few key ways. Unlike what are called legal spies, who are sent overseas as diplomats, military attaches,
Yo, this music,
or
this
other
background
official
music
government
ought to make you fall
positions,
asleep, man.
illegal spies intentionally try to hide any connections to the Russian government or even to Russia. As a result, they have no diplomatic cover if they are discovered or arrested. Over the years, we've uncovered more than a dozen of these deep cover illegals. Some of those were even part of the recent prisoner swap between Russia and the West last year.
Damn.
Our investigations have
We still
revealed
want that info, huh? They had to
complicated
go get the prisoners
characters and
back.
subplots that sometimes
What did you
verge
find
on
out,
the
huh?
absurd. This is definitely one of those. The investigation into Maria Adela Cookveld Rivera, the cat lady as we call her, began unintentionally in September of 2018. Earlier that day, my team at Bellingcat at the time, alongside our partners at The Insider, had published a different investigation. Months earlier that year, former Russian spy Sergei Skripal had been poisoned in Salisbury, England. We had discovered that the Russian operatives within the GRU, Russia's version of the CIA, had been issued passports with nearly consecutive numbers. This
Damn.
finding was a huge breakthrough moment for our team. Not only was it completely absurd, we just couldn't believe that an oversight in tradecraft of this magnitude would ever be made, but it was also the gift that kept on giving. It didn't just help us with the Skripal investigation, we found a third member of the poisoning team thanks to that, but it allowed us to identify a whole range of passport numbers that we could credibly suspect of being Russian intelligence operatives. For the GRU, this discovery
Keep saying
was
we, bro, and then
obviously a
being vague
disaster.
about what they're like
As
looking
soon as
into.
we
Like, were you
discovered
part of it or
numbers
not,
we
dog? Are you the
suspected
Russian
of
spy or
belonging to
what,
Russian
bro?
spies,
I'm getting a little
dozens
vibe
of
off you,
active
man.
spies around the
You're a
world
little
were
secretive with your
burned
shit.
overnight.
Give me the
Many
real
of
now.
them were under deep cover throughout Europe, after spending years or even decades living under fake identities. The cat lady was one of these spies. I remember the day I stumbled upon this name for the first time. I had just received access to a leaked dataset of Belarusian border crossings, and I was eager to find if any Russian spies, using passports from the now known range, had crossed the border of this country that sits between Russia and Western Europe. There was one name that stood out, a beautiful foreign Spanish-sounding name, Maria Adela Kufelt Rivera. It didn't make sense for a foreigner to have a Russian passport, only a few digits away from known GRU operatives. Now, why would the person with that name...
Yo, that's gotta be one of the biggest fuck-ups ever, bro. Let me give him the passport, like, close-ass numbers on it, bro.
Use a passport
that's
issued
fucked.
by Russians.
I'd be pissed.
GRU.
That's how I'm getting caught, bro.
Why did
Are we
she
serious?
even have a Russian passport to begin with?
And then you're not even
Why
gonna
would
come
she travel
protect me?
back
I'm
and
liable
forth
for
between
everything? That's
Italy and
horrible.
Russia dozens of times in the period 2010 to 2018? And crucially, why did she fly back to Moscow the day after an investigation was released? And why was she never returning back from Russia after that? We started by scouring everything we could do online for any information we could find about her. Fortunately, the internet was flush with pretty pictures, videos, and social media posts. All of these helped us build an idea of her life in Naples, the people she hung out with, the clubs she was part of, the jewelry business that she claimed she was running. We decided to reach out to a few of her friends to see what they could tell us about this woman who seemingly vanished overnight. Her origin story went as follows. Maria Adela Kufelt Rivera
Bro, this guy's
was
voice
born
is
in
actually,
Callao,
like,
Peru,
ridiculous.
to a German father and a Peruvian
Like,
mother
not to be a
on
dickhead, it's
September the
ridiculously
1st,
boring, bro. Like,
1978.
shit, dog.
The story she
There's some
would tell her
charisma in
friends
there, bro. I'm about to
Naples
fall
was
asleep.
quite exotic. Her father abandoned her mother when she was just a baby,
Damn.
with her mother left to raise Maria on her own. Then in 1980, her mother supposedly took baby Maria to Moscow, of all places, to watch the Olympic Games, which were happening there, when she received an emergency message from Peru requiring her to return home immediately. Her mother left little baby Maria in the care of a Soviet family that she had apparently befriended during her visit, and then she never returned. Maria was then raised by these adoptive parents in Russia and was later abused by her adoptive father.
Damn.
That's the story she was telling everybody. Does any of this sound fishy yet? Not the best origin cover story, or legend as they are called in Russian intelligence jargon. The reason for this sloppy, implausible story was that it had to be invented on the fly, or retrofitted to fit the unexpected circumstances that this spy had landed in. You see, Soviet and later Russian illegal spies are usually deployed with impeccably crafted backstories, legends, and valid passports issued by the country that they purport to originate from. To do this, a whole service department exists in Moscow, with branches at many Russian embassies around the world, whose only job is to hunt for opportunities to create these fake identities.
So how do they get a lot of the information? I'm
Sometimes
assuming they
based
pay
on
somebody.
forged original
Like,
birth
yeah, you just got your
certificates,
passport out
at
and you're in
other times
Russia and you're
based
like on a
stolen
trip. Somebody, like, some guy pulls you aside, hey, we'll give you some money. You show us what your
This had been
passport
the
looks
case
like.
with
Exactly.
Maria Rivera's
And,
backstory
like, copy and
initially.
paste that shit.
A forged birth certificate issued by a parish church in a small Peruvian village had been used to get the Russian spy an authentic Peruvian passport in 2005. However, just a few months after she had been successfully deployed as a young, attractive Peruvian globetrotter to Malta, the unthinkable happened. A civil officer overseeing this case in Lima, Peru, thought something was fishy about this newly issued citizen passport. The officer reached out to the parish priest at the Cristo Libertado diocese, and the actual priest responded. It didn't take long for the reverend to know that this was all a fake. After all, he was the founder of that church and the inaugural priest. It had been established, and that's where the problem lay, 9 years after Maria's documents, the birth certificate, said was issued there. Unsurprisingly, he reported back to Lima that the documents were clearly fake. And her name, Maria Della Kufelt Rivera, was even included in an annulled citizenship list in the annual report of the Peruvian Migration Department, available even to download on the internet. In circumstances like this, the Russian illegals machine would just recall the spy back to Moscow and start afresh after a few months or a year under a new identity. However, in this case, our Maria Adela had already been deployed, initially in Malta and then in Italy, and had begun building a promising circle of contacts. She was dating an eligible bachelor, the son of a Malta rich family, and she had befriended people with important contacts in politics, business, and the media. It made no sense to kill all of this and start afresh. So Moscow Center decided to take a huge gamble. They kept Maria Adela deployed in the field, but gave her emergency Russian papers, a Russian passport, from the then unknown Gyuryu range. And to fit that passport, they had to retrofit her backstory. Thus, the implausible Moscow Olympics trip. And even more implausibly, that crazy story held up among her new friends, and no one seemed to question the bona fides of this woman. Apparently, the looks and charisma that went with her went a long way to make up for the Gyuryu operational deficiencies. But we still didn't understand why or what she had been doing all this time, initially in Malta and then in Italy, as her social media posts showed to us. By 2018, she had lived in Europe for over a decade, known to her friends as a Peruvian jewelry maker. Using social media posts, travel records, and flight data attached to the newly uncovered passport, we began piecing together her movements from 2009 to 2018. Between 9 and 12, she appeared in Malta, Rome, Paris, and in London. She had infiltrated numerous different expatriate circles in these countries. She had a rich boyfriend in Malta, later another rich one in Italy.
Damn.
She took trips to Africa and the Middle East to attend many jewelry expos. But more interestingly than these travels was her base in Naples, Italy. That really drew our attention. See, Naples is home to NATO's Joint Forces Command Center. It is a major operational headquarters for the alliance, which makes it the ideal place for a Russian spy posing as a socialite to live. Maria opened her jewelry business here in 2013, first establishing herself in the community. Later, she helped relaunch and became the secretary of a local charity organization, which had been launched by a NATO officer.
How fire would a movie be of like a Russian spy returning to Russia, and then he like figures he doesn't want to be there, he wants to move to a different country, or they want to kill him, and then he's like trying to escape while they're trying to kill him. Wouldn't that be fire?
For her to see
like a fire little action movie
relationships with people that were close to NATO circles, or even within NATO itself. These relationships granted her access to untold NATO secrets without arousing suspicion. Unlike what you might expect from a highly trained spy, however, Maria Adela was also known to be very emotionally unpredictable. These ups and downs and frequent heartbreaks that she talked about likely complicated her operational consistency. From a professional sense, however, her jewelry brand did offer her the perfect cover story. We began investigating Serene, her company, first using social media posts. She marketed herself as an artisan boutique jewelry designer. She traveled all the time to meet with important partners and buyers, giving the impression of a sophisticated and busy businesswoman. However, like most things in her life, that wasn't exactly what it seemed like. When we reversed image searched the photos of her jewelry, the jewelry that she supposedly designed herself in Naples, we discovered that they were actually cheap trinkets purchasable online from Chinese websites and wholesalers. This was an exciting discovery for us because it was yet another proof that Maria Adela was living a lie. But those around her in Naples didn't realize this. She was even invited to host grand openings for her storefront, named the Serene Concept Gallery, inviting friends from all over to come celebrate. A promo video for the venue that we found online markets it as a haven for the high-rolling public, including local politicians, businessmen, and celebrities. She was even interviewed for an Italian TV channel at the time. Again, that's a great way to get close to powerful contacts that might be useful to Russia. The jewelry brand also provided Maria with a useful excuse for travel and for building relationships elsewhere. For example, Maria visited Bahrain multiple times after 2013 under the pretext of attending the annual Jewelry Arabia Expo. She seemed to have made good contacts in the country. As in December 2014, she posted a photo on Serene's company Facebook page of her gifting cufflinks to the country's prime minister at the time,
them bitches straight off Timu,
bin Salman Al Khalifa. As I mentioned earlier, the Lions Club charity was also a key way that Maria was building an important relationship circle. She was so committed that she eventually became the secretary of that local chapter. According to a German Bundeswehr officer who was treasurer of the Lions Club branch in 2015, the club's membership had begun waning before Maria joined. An executive from the biggest Lions Club in Naples recommended Maria Adela as a way to invigorate momentum. He said she's very enthusiastic, she will bring people back. He recalls that Maria Adela was very active in trying to revitalize the club, attending all the events. And at one point in 2018, as membership began declining again and the prospects of club closure re-emerged, she even volunteered to pay herself for everybody's membership fee. This gesture actually directly aligns with the technique used by spies to gather profiling intelligence. For example, identifying people with financial difficulties could mean finding targets potentially susceptible for external influence and who may be vulnerable to recruitment or blackmail. This would be seen as a valuable intelligence for the illegal spy to pass on to other operatives who would then take more actionable initiatives with that information. Then on September 15, 2018, one day after our article exposing the Salisbury poisoners,
I feel like if I find out somebody I know, somebody I work with is a spy,
Maria purchased a one-way ticket to Moscow.
I'd just be like, I don't know if I'd snitch, I don't know if I'd call the cops, depending on what it is. Like,
and nearly all of her personal
if they're spying around, though, just spying around, it's like whatever, bro.
Then 2 months after her sudden departure, Maria made one final cryptic Facebook post. She claimed that she had been suffering from cancer and revealed that her hair had just grown back after chemotherapy. This appears to be an attempt to explain her disappearance without offering any verifiable information. Now, her jewelry passport number, the unlikely details of her childhood, and her fake jewelry business, installation at NATO headquarters, convinced us that Maria was a jewelry illegal spy already. But as in many of our investigations into illegals, the final piece of evidence we needed was to confirm not who she wasn't, Maria Adela, but who she really was, identifying her Russian
now we're getting after it. Now I'm not going to sleep.
However, uncovering Maria's real identity ended up being a frustrating months-long challenge for us. Initial searches for any thread that would connect Maria to life in Russia were fruitless. We didn't really have a place to start because we couldn't find a single true detail to search around. Her name, birthday, and career were completely fake. Searching for her face in Russian passport databases yielded hundreds of possible matches with very low match probabilities. No public sightings or social media profiles with her face popped up anywhere in Russia. It was a deafening digital silence after her disappearance from Italy. Then I remembered how often sources in Naples consistently described one thing about Maria: her intense attachment to her cat, Luisa.
Tracking down the cat.
In fact, many people described the cat as the only stable thing in Maria's life. So maybe, just maybe, this was the one true thing about Maria. I hypothesized that she may have brought Luisa, the cat, back to Moscow after she fled. And maybe finding Luisa, the cat, was going to be easier than finding Maria, the spy. For months, we started looking for any potential linkage between that cat in Naples and a matching cat in Moscow. We searched for cats named Luisa mentioned on Russian social media sites. We tried to find a database of Russian domestic pets listed by name. No such existed, unfortunately.
I didn't know you could identify animals like that. Well, I guess.
Using Luisa the cat's face, mostly as a joke, but with a secret hope that
how many black cats with green eyes are there, bro?
None of that produced any meaningful results, of course. But then we realized that every cat that travels from the EU to Russia must have one thing: a uniquely numbered microchip implanted in order to identify the cat. Otherwise, they can't get on the plane, cross the border. It's all linked to vaccinations, immunizations, and so on and so forth. And this was our first breakthrough. We were eventually able to locate the microchip number for Luisa, the Italian cat. Asking for a favor from an Austrian
cat's kind of a real spy, the whole thing, if I'm being honest.
I had to explain that cats are not people, and thus they're not subject to protection from privacy laws. This argument surprisingly worked, and after a few months of digging, I got the reply to my pet project, the microchip number. At this point in the investigation, we needed to use every shred of digital evidence we had to find who the real person behind Maria Adela is. One thing we did is obtain a Russian phone number in the
Dude,
name
I'm not
of
gonna lie
Maria
though,
Adela
20,
that
what
was
do you say,
used when she
2010 to
was booking
2018?
flights
That's a long
inside
time
Russia. We were
spying,
able to
man.
obtain the
Jeez.
call records of
She
that
kinda,
number
she
from the
MVP
Russian
with it,
black
bro.
market
I'm
for
gonna be
data.
honest.
And while she didn't make any
fire.
meaningful phone calls in Russia, she was using it mostly for internet, we saw that there were incoming spam phone calls from a particular region in Russia, from Krasnodar, that's in the south of Russia. Now, what is interesting is
they
that
got a region
spam calls
inside
in
the
Russia
region.
work in a
What the fuck?
particular way. When the owner of a phone number shows up in a new region, in roaming, they start getting calls from spam numbers in that region. This meant that the owner of the phone had shown up at least once in Krasnodar. And then I remembered that in an Instagram posting of Maria Adela, we had found a comment in Russian, and that happened to be from a woman from Krasnodar, from actually a town in Krasnodar called Anapa. And these were two
That's
data
shitty
points
spy work, I'm not
connecting
gonna lie.
the
Your
person
friends out here
behind
commenting.
Maria Adela to a particular region in Russia. But then the stroke of luck was when we
On
were
your
able
Insta
to obtain
posts?
an old searchable database of Russian passports from before 2006. And this meant that was before the GRU would have scrubbed any data about Maria Adela or the real person behind the Maria Adela from databases. We did a reverse face search with the photo of Maria Adela, and we found several faces that may or may not have been the real person behind Maria Adela, but one of them only was connected to Krasnodar. And this was a young woman in a black and white photo who resembled a younger version of Maria Adela.
Yo, put it side by
and
side,
her
bro. What are you
name
doing?
was Olga Kolobova.
Olga.
Now the photo,
Yo,
as you
Olga's
can see,
eye
is
is
of a much
crazy,
younger
huh?
person. And although she
It's the
resembled
photo, but
Maria
damn,
Adela,
they
we
did her
could not be
dirty.
sure. And in fact, my colleagues were saying this may be a different person. And then I sent this same photo to close friends of Maria Adela who had befriended her in Western Europe. And the reaction was,
Yo, I'm not gonna lie.
ambiguous.
I feel
That's
like you have to have
100% Maria Adela.
You have to have a weak ass relationship with your friends to not notice one of your friends is a fucking spy. Like, if one of my homies was a spy, no, fuck, hell no, bro, no. Well, I get they're older and shit.
That was not enough for us to publish an article. We
but
needed
nah,
to
bro,
prove it beyond any doubt.
I'm not hanging out every day with my friends and like, but I just, you know what I mean? I know, bro. I feel like you know. I feel like this is a very like a weird circle.
We managed to
you didn't
find
notice
Olga
the fucking
Kolobova's
Russian
OK
spy
account. OK is something like Facebook in Russia. It was linked to her mobile number, and that's how we found it. Although there were no photos of Olga herself, there were telling signs. She, for example, followed a group called Four Paws. It was a veterinary clinic, clearly a cat lover. She posted photos of flower bouquets mirroring the same aesthetic as Maria Adela's Instagram, where there were a lot of photos in the same style. And she shared a photo of a Mediterranean beach, and she asked her friends to guess where that had been. Well, we knew where that was. That was Italy. Leaked car registration databases showed that the person called Olga Kolobova had bought an
This
Audi
motherfucker's
A3
doing
in
crazy
2020.
work. I'm not gonna lie.
And guess what?
Tracking it down like
Maria
this is
Adela
fire.
was also known to have loved the Audi brand. She had posted a picture of herself behind the wheel of an Audi on Instagram. All of these were great telling signs that we found the real person, but we needed a photo. And then an idea popped up in my mind. And this is when I turned to an app that I had never imagined I would find helpful in an investigation
Tinder?
of legal spies. Tinder.
Nah, come on
In
now.
Olga
The boy got it. I would
Kolobova's
have
noticed
checked
that she
there
had
first.
received a
I would've
confirmation
checked there
code from
first.
Tinder, which revealed to us that she must have a Tinder account. I also knew that Tinder usually works off the location where you are based to serve up romantic partner candidates that may be in your near vicinity. So I created my first ever Tinder account. I used a fake Russian name and fake photos, sorry to all the men whose physiques I briefly borrowed, and I placed my location within 1 kilometer radius of Olga Kolobova's apartment using GPS spoofing. And I started swiping and swiping and swiping. And about 3 days later, I found it. A woman named Olga who had the exact same photo on her Tinder profile that Maria Adela had on her social media page before. This was the nail in the coffin. We finally had a photo, not only similar between the two, but literally the same photo connecting the two identities. Maria Adela was definitely Olga Kolobova. After confirming this, thanks to some Russian hackers, we got access to several of Olga's dating profiles and accounts. We could see that she spent significant time swiping, chatting, and setting up dates, sometimes 2 on the same day. We also discovered, thanks to these photos, that she did most of these
that's crazy work, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
This
disrespect, man.
Because she had a habit of sending photos of her legs to the man that she was chatting with. These photos also revealed her office location, the workspace, and full computer screens showing that she worked.
Why are you
at the
using the
Russian
same
pension
photos
fund
you used
office
when
in
you were a
Moscow.
spy and on your
This
Tinder?
was confirmed by her
That's
food
like
delivery
spying
apps
101.
that
You
showed
don't
that she
use
was
the same
receiving
shit,
deliveries for lunch to the office address of the pension fund. So for any of you who are wondering what burned Russian spies go on to do, it sounds pretty bleak and boring. They work at the pension fund as accountants. Using old regional business databases, we were eventually able
that's
to
weak as
trace
shit, I'm gonna be
Olga's
honest.
previous
Going from a
Russian
spy to
digital
working
presence
at
to 2005.
It's all good though. Live your
When,
life.
at the age of 23, she had registered a company selling alcohol in Russia's Krasnodar region. This discovery
I'd be a
gave
good
us
spy though.
her old registered
I speak
address,
Spanish. I can't
and that
speak
enabled
that
us in
good of
turn to
Spanish,
track
but
down her
I'll
father.
pass. I'd be a
found
good
that
spy
he
for
headed
the
the
USA.
military
I'm a real
department
patriot,
at a
you know.
big
I'll bring back the
university,
real
the
info,
Urals
you know what I'm
University,
saying?
and he had been decorated with military
long as you give me a
honors and
fucking Audi,
medals
I'm out there,
because
dog.
of his
Listen.
international duty in the republics of Iraq, Angola, and Syria. Apparently, Olga Kolobova was a second-generation GRU officer. So we had been able to prove the identity of Maria Adela as Olga Kolobova using ultimately Tinder. But that wasn't satisfactory enough because I had spent so many months tracing Luisa the cat. We had obtained the microchip number from Italy, and fortunately for us, in the beginning of 2022, Russia introduced a system of voluntary registration of pets, household animals, called Animal ID, and we were able to get access to that system. And guess what? The microchip number, the Italian issued chip number, in the name of the cat Luisa, was linked to an owner whose name was O. Kolobova. And there you go, the role of the cat was finally confirmed.
Can't use the same flicks, can't use the same cat,
Maria
man.
and Olga were the same person and were a Russian spy. And we were able to unmask her because of the very human attributes that spies have. Firstly,
Dog,
her
they
love
didn't
for
talk to her?
cats. And secondly,
So she's
her
just gonna
search
see
for
this video,
love.
she's gonna be like,
These
oh
are kinds
shit,
of things
the
that
cover's
expose
blown.
most illegals in the end.
She's done with her
We were
job
also
now.
able to later find a recent high-quality photo of Olga Kolobova's driver's license taken in 2021. A comparison of the photos yielded a very, very high convincing match, proving one more time, as if we needed it, that the Peruvian illegal Maria Adela Kufeld Rivera was actually
You think spies,
GRU
like as a
operative
profession, is
Olga
looked up or
Kolobova.
down upon in like Russia?
Olga's case introduced
They
us to
obviously-
the new
I don't know if they'd be
generation
able to
of
say it,
Russian
but, like-
illegals. Individuals
Like I feel
deployed
like
young,
if you're at the
trained
dinner
quickly,
table with the
and reliant
family
on
friends in
their
Russia,
natural
you'd be like,
charm
hey
and
man, I just went to
improvisation.
France, I just got
Their
some,
fake
hey man.
identities weren't just
I got some
covers.
info,
They were
but I feel
their
like if you're a,
realities, and the information that
you
they
know, if
collected
you want the best
was
for your kids, you'd be
deeply
like, hey, you could always go
consequential.
apply to be a spy.
I'm not sure
Like,
we
what
will
you think
ever
they think
know
about
exactly
that
what
shit?
Olga gathered
I've never
during
heard
her
anybody
time in
talk about
Naples
being a
and
spy in the
passed on
US.
to her superiors within the
Like, I don't even
GRU.
know how you'd get into
But
that.
that's part of what makes illegals so dangerous. Since uncovering Maria's true identity, we've also uncovered a number of other illegal Russian spies. And we're not done. If you enjoy these kind of investigations, make sure you sign up for the Crystal.
Yo, you should catch one that's still in the act.